This is a DGHradio.com news and information weather review.
All right, hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here. We're going to take a really close look at the weather that's affecting the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico. And believe me, we've got a lot to talk about. Everything from some pretty serious coastal dangers happening right now to a tropical system that's, well, got everybody watching.
So, what's brewing out there in the Atlantic? That's the big question, right? Everyone's talking about this system churning away in the Caribbean. We're going to break it all down for you. What it is, where it might be headed, and the big one, what it means for us, right here.
Okay, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll get the big picture of the Atlantic. Then, we'll zero in on this Invest 98L. We'll talk about the coastal hazards you need to know about right now. Check out the forecast for the week, and then we get to the tricky part, the two possible paths for this storm. And of course, we'll finish up with how you can stay safe and prepared. All right, first up, the Atlantic weather at a glance, the big picture. Let's start wide. Forecasters at the National Hurricane Center, they're keeping an eye on a few different spots, but there's one really big area of messy weather down in the Eastern Caribbean that is stealing the show. So when you look at the whole Atlantic map, it's clear it's not just this one system. Yeah, our main focus is this disturbance they're calling AL98 in the Caribbean, but you can see a couple of other tropical waves way out east. For right now, though, all eyes are on AL98 and its big, disorganized mess of showers and thunderstorms. That's the one we're really watching. Okay, let's zoom in a bit. Time to focus on the main event, Invest 98L. This is what we really need to dig into. You hear this term thrown around, right? Invest. So what does that even mean? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It's just what the National Hurricane Center calls a weather system they're, investigating. They're giving it some extra attention, collecting more data, running special computer models on it, all to figure out if it has the potential to spin up into a tropical depression or even a named storm. So let's check the vitals on this thing, on 98L. Right now, it's a tropical wave down in the Eastern Caribbean, and it's already packing some punch. We're seeing winds between 30 and 40 miles per hour in there. But here's the key. It is moving. It's racing west at 20 to 25 miles per hour. And that speed is actually what's holding it back. It doesn't have a closed circular center yet. And it's just moving too darn fast to pull itself together. And this right here, this is the real challenge with the forecast. Look at these numbers. The chance of it forming into something more organized in the next 48 hours? Pretty low, only about 30%. And that's all because of how fast it's moving. But look out over the next 7 days, and that number jumps way up to 70%. So why the huge difference? Well, the thinking is that it's going to slow down once it gets into the Central Caribbean, and that's where the environment is just much, much better for its development.
Okay, now let's talk about the here and now impacts. Because here's the thing, we don't need to wait for this system to get a name to feel its power. It doesn't matter if it's organized or not. Right now, this system, combined with a swell coming down from the north, is already kicking up some really dangerous conditions along our coasts.
Get a load of this. 16 feet. That's the height of the breaking waves that the San Juan buoy is reporting. Just think about that for a second. That is a ton of energy slamming into our north-facing beaches. It goes without saying, that creates some incredibly dangerous conditions out in the water. And with surf that powerful, you get a life-threatening risk. The National Weather Service doesn't mince words here. They say, and I quote, "Rip currents can sweep even the best swimmers away from shore into deeper water." Let's be really clear. This is not a suggestion. It's a serious, serious warning. The water's just not safe for swimming right now. And these aren't just vague warnings either. We've got a whole list of official advisories in effect. There's a high surf advisory, a high rip current risk, a coastal flood advisory for those low-lying spots, and a small craft advisory for anyone out on a boat. All of these are active right now, and they absolutely demand our respect.
Okay, so that's what's happening at the coast. But what about for the rest of us, for the week ahead? Let's take a look at the day-by-day forecast so you know what to expect.
For the first half of the week, things are kind of all over the place. St. Croix, you've got the highest rain chance today, sitting at 60%. But then over on St. Thomas and St. John, your chances actually dip on Tuesday down to 20%. But don't get too used to it, because the moisture starts to creep back in for everybody by Wednesday. And remember, any of these showers could dump a lot of rain in a hurry and even bring a thunderstorm. And it's not just about the rain either. It's going to be windy. Breezy to windy conditions are just going to be part of the deal for a while. We're talking steady winds from the east, with gusts hitting up to 30 miles per hour, especially if you get under one of those heavier showers. That means choppy seas and just blustery conditions all around.
All right, now for the really tricky part.
What's going to happen later this week? This is where it gets tough, because the future of Invest 98L is, well, it's pretty uncertain. The big computer models that forecasters use are basically telling two completely different stories.
And this lays out the dilemma perfectly. It's like you have two experts giving you different advice. On one hand, you've got the American GFS model. It spins up a stronger storm and hooks it northward, which would mean widespread heavy rain and some nasty winds for us. But then, the European model, the ECMWF, it says, not so fast. It keeps the system weaker and sends it farther west, which would push the worst of the weather away from us. This disagreement between the two biggest models in the world, that's exactly why forecasters are saying their confidence is low right now.
But here's the crucial point. Even though they disagree on where it's going and how strong it'll be, there is one thing both models agree on. It's gonna be wet. No matter what happens, we are looking at a very unsettled, rainy pattern from midweek right on into the weekend. So the bottom line is we all need to be ready for more rain and storms.
So, with all that uncertainty, what do? What are the actionable takeaways? Let's boil this all down into what you need to know and do right now to stay prepared.
Okay, it really just comes down to three simple things this week. Number one, keep checking the official forecasts. This situation is changing, so you absolutely need the latest updates from the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service office. Number two, and I can't stress this enough, stay out of the water. Avoid the hazardous surf. It's just not worth the risk. And number three, just stay aware. Pay attention to the changing conditions, especially as we get into the middle and end of the week.
Which brings us right back to the big question we started with. Will Invest 98L actually get its act together and become our next named storm? You know, only time is going to tell, but it is for sure a real possibility and something we all need to keep a close eye on over the next few days. Thanks so much for joining me for this DGHradio.com weather review. Please, stay safe out there.